Hello, this is going to be a brief introduction to a long series I'm going to do on the philosophy of time. Okay, and this is going to be fun because you're going to be a participant. I'm going to see if we can uphold my viewpoint that one can be both an eternalist and a believer in free will at the same time. Now, I know what you're saying. You're saying those two positions are more or less impossible to uphold simultaneously. Now, in this particular series, The Philosophy of Time, and this is an intro, okay, this is going to be a very brief intro, we are going to be covering a lot of ground. It will be interrupted by a number of other discussions, perhaps on the null set and various other issues. But I want this is going to continue, and it's going to require commitment. It's going to require a commitment on your part because you're going to influence the end of this. It is possible that I will decide that I cannot uphold both of those positions at the same time, eternalism and belief in free will. It's possible, and if I do, then I'll have to do a major rethink on the whole subject. All right, so I'm not going to burden you too much on this introduction. I do want you to go right here, right below, and check out Jason Zari's audio. Jason Zari, his audio presentation on why he's an eternalist and why he believes that modern physics upholds the eternalist position. By the way, Jason Zari, his organization is Scholardarity.com. Their mission statement is to give unemployed scholars a chance to publish. I mean, imagine that. You may be unemployed as a scholar, but you have the chance to publish, not have the department head get in the way of it. So how great is that? All right, well, you can go check him out. I'll link both his audio presentation and Scholardarity right below that. So anyways, that's kind of a business he started up, by the way. So to preface, I want to give a very brief preface on the philosophy of time. We're going to be discussing eternalism, which is the belief that space-time has a reality to it that we could call tenseless. It doesn't focus on the present moment, tomorrow, and yesterday. In some sense, you might say all time is now. Now, in mystical philosophies, you have the concept of the eternal now. In the case of, now that would be mystical philosophies, okay, but I think that's something a little different. If you go to mysticism, you have the idea of outside of time in a mystical sense, okay. In the case of scientific eternalism, it's a little bit more grounded in what you could call empirical scientific reality. And that's just, it would be more or less the belief that Einstein held, that you have space and then you have time as a dimension of space. Now, I would imagine that the quantum physicists would possibly tend more towards presentism. I can't say that for sure, but if you believe in a future that has yet to be determined, then in some sense maybe you're believing in a future that doesn't yet exist, and that would lend itself towards presentism. Okay, so that's a vast overgeneralization that is one that obviously you're going to find exceptions and people who take exception to it. The interesting thing about the clash between the relativists and the quantum physicists is it often spilled over into philosophy, including politics. Relativists tended to be left-wing. In fact, I would argue that eternalists, well, definitely determinists tend to be left-wing politically, and non-determinists tend to be right-wing. Now, eternalism and presentism, I wouldn't say that all eternalists are necessarily determinists, and that all presentists are necessarily believers in contingency. I mean, I don't know that that's the case. It's something that we're going to explore here. For myself, I'm both an eternalist, but I don't believe in determinism. By the way, I would check out my video series on liberty, the one before the one on the null hypothesis. Okay, two videos before this one, there's a part 1 and part 2 on the paradox between philosophies that promote determinism and yet at the very same time politically they believe in freedom, because that's actually going to be important to the Philosophy of Time series. Okay, so stick along for the ride. We're going to end this at 5 minutes. Again, my position is that it is possible to believe that all of space-time exists in some sense and some now that is outside of space-time, but also to believe it, also to refute the idea of determinism and to believe in the idea of free will. Well, let's see if I can justify it. Stick around.